First of all, it's a great pleasure to be here today. So it's 3:15 p.m. It's one of the latest sessions, but we have a fantastic lineup. I'm really thrilled to have here these great leaders from all over the world to talk about things that are really impacting our industry, not only in gaming, across all of these spaces that we see right now. So we talk about how things going. The session today is literally a continuation of a few sessions we had already. I was a great privilege talking to Haiyan, talking to Luis at GDC. And we talked sometime before about what is AI, how things going, what are the things going around us. But now things are getting more and more real. So it's a great pleasure to be here today. Let me introduce everyone here. My name is Vitalii Vashchuk. I'm head of gaming at EPAM. We developed live services, backend, a lot of data and AI things for AAA studios around the globe. And it's a pleasure to be here. And let's start with our guest. So, Haiyan, let's start with you.
Oh, hi, everybody. My name's Haiyan Zhang. I am GM of Gaming AI at Xbox, and I head up some of our player-facing AI features on the platform. So recently, we launched a gaming copilot. And we're also thinking about some new features leveraging AI to support players.
Thomas, let's start with you.
Hello, my name is Thomas Ko. I'm all the way from South Korea. Just got here this morning. I'm head of publishing platform at KRAFTON. We are doing a bunch of different things, which we're going to probably get to a little later. But KRAFTON, if you don't know, we are the maker of PUBG, Battlegrounds, and also the brand new game that we launched last year. It's called Enjoy. So we have various different AI technology implementation in those two games.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. Moin?
Yeah, hi. I'm Moinuddin. I'm from Xsolla. So my other colleagues here talk about how to build games, and I'm like, in the end, how to make money from the games. So that's what I'll talk about.
Yeah, fantastic. And Luis, over to you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Luis Villegas. I oversee technology for PlayStation Studios. We have many studios making different types of games, and I also oversee central development, so shared content creation, co-development, services. Part of my role is to ensure we understand how AI can help the studios, the player experience, the development process. I'm super excited to be here with all of you.
Fantastic. Thank you all. So let me start with questions. So first of all, let's think about, so agentic is a term that gaining a momentum in gaming. So how would you define it, and why is it important for the industry today? So Haiyan, let's start with you.
Oh, thanks. I just wanted to say it's such a pleasure to be on the stage with Luis, my fellow gaming industry colleague, Xbox, PlayStation. This is not awkward at all.
Yeah.
I think we've had some great conversations. So when we started talking about this, I think AI as a general field in terms of providing tools for development for new technologies has really been evolving very rapidly. As you have seen, we started maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago. It was just about the models, and the models were predicting the next word, the next letter. And what we've seen is a lot of systems building up around the models, which we call, orchestration layers. And these systems and the evolution of the models have brought about this new capability of AI, which I think across the industry we're calling agentic AI. So this is the concept where the AI is not just predicting the next letter, the next word. It is AI that can plan ahead for something, for a goal that is directed by the user. It can take action, so it can call tools, it can call APIs and services, and it can adapt and learn. And in order to do that, it needs to have things like memory, things like tool calling. So it's just enriching what AI models as a foundational building block can actually do to support the whole development pipeline. And so we were talking about agentic AI as such a big term. How does that apply to gaming? And I think across the panel, we really do want to drill in today on, one, agentic AI as it applies to game experiences and how it could transform game experiences and make them more dynamic and immersive. You can have that conversation with your NPC and go really deep on the lore of the game. But also agentic AI in supporting coding, supporting development, possibly agentic AI to support DevOps and LiveOps as we continue on this journey. So there's a lot of opportunities for these new AI systems to support all of our teams across the industry, big teams, small teams, especially small teams where you don't have the budgets to have, resources to have a big, fully fledged team that agentic AI can support on some of those functions.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Thomas, what do you think from your side? So you have a lot of games, and what's coming?
Yeah, so for us, AI is not only for development tools, but how you actually make that particular AI simulations and actions to be part of the gaming, experiences. So, for instance, let's say you're a package game. You don't really have an online server. And how are you going to put the AI into the model small enough so that NPC, for instance, could actually use or move in the village based on the simulations model rather than actual rule-based. So those kind of things are the things that I think the game industry needs to really think about it more. Because generally, agentic AI, you think about cloud, and a lot of things are actually consuming a lot of GPUs and costing a lot of money and whatnot. But how are you going to actually make that as an experience that are relevant to the users? So really going into the level of user experiences using AI in the gaming so that entire scenario of the game experiences could be expanded based on the AI simulations is the area that I think that we are doing more. I think that's how game industry needs to expand the definition of agentic AI a little bit more.
Thank you. Moin, what's from your side?
Yeah, and I think I agree with Thomas.
A bit closer, yeah.
More closer, okay.
Yeah.
I agree with Thomas. I think the way I think about it is more dynamism in the game. Really based on user behavior, dynamically creating new quests or creating new characters or creating new scenarios. I think that's where agentic AI is going to come. Previously, that has to be programmed early on, what the scenarios could look like. But now, based on a user behavior, dynamically that changes, right? But the question Thomas raised is really good. For package software, would you put a small LLM inside that package? For web-based, or streaming, that's easier because you have the LLM, hosted somewhere. But for a package, that's very interesting to see how that evolves, obviously. And I think that's kind of where, in my opinion, things will evolve.
All right, awesome. So what does AI mean to your organization, and how are you leveraging in the gaming companies today? I think, Luis, you oversee so many studios around you. So how it's attaching to you?
So the first thing is we share the same definition of agentic, right? The idea that you have these systems that are built on top of models that have the ability to plan, to have goals, feedback loops, and they can talk to other systems. So we've been looking at a lot of our problems using kind of that framework. The taxonomy that we use for solving problems is in 3 layers. So layer number 1 is development. Agentic systems or AI systems that can accelerate development. And that part is badly needed. Like if you look at the gaming industry where we are today, cost has skyrocketed. Making games is more difficult than ever. And AI can really help accelerate some of the things that historically we've done manually, and it's been very difficult and tedious to do. We're looking at AI as a potential solution in that space. The second bucket, I call it operations. We have a fair amount of live service games, so you have DevOps in that bucket, you have live commerce systems. So anything that can help create a feedback loop to understand better or to update the game in real time. And the last one is experiences. So think about, the best example we have is if you ever play Gran Turismo, we released an agent called GT Sophie that is a driving agent, and it can actually train the players. That was our first big experience with agentic systems, and it's been pretty successful. Now we're investigating other ways to kind of amplify the experiences for different titles that we have and see how AI can make that kind of engagement, that user experience more innovative, different, more dynamic. I think dynamic is the right word there. So yes, that's what it means to us. It means a way to innovate the player experience, a way to innovate the operations, a way to innovate the development.
Thank you. So, Moin, you come from the heavily technology company that serves hundreds of game companies, literally. So, how does it look like from your side, and how do you leverage AI at Xsolla?
Yeah, that's a great question. We work with not hundreds, thousands of game developers around the world. And for us, I think as Luis has pointed out, it's really about three ways. One, obviously, as a tech company, using AI to improve productivity in our development. Second is, more important, is how do we improve the experience of game developers through AI? That's a big thing, is how do our product inherently become AI aware, or rather driven by AI? That goes into more really about real-time data, real-time analysis, real-time interpretation. That's kind of where we are focusing on. And third is obviously going to more agent-based interaction as opposed to API only. So we are working on MCPs and agents so that in future, instead of API, a in-game agent could talk to our agent, get the commerce done. So that's potentially where we are investing. And obviously, it's an evolving piece. And as everyone knows in the room, that every second day there's a new version of LLM. Keeping up itself is a nonstop effort. But we obviously love some of the models out there, and we are working on it actively. And I think you'll see more and more coming in from our side, and I'm sure every other company that's focused on tech.
Yeah, thanks, Moin. And I think the congrats with launching QA. Sorry, that was a QA. AI Copilot with Xbox. So how it works right now with the Xbox part?
Oh.
Anything you can share?
Just on the agentic AI on the tool side is that, I've spent a lot of time talking with game studios, developers across the industry, as well as our own development teams. And I think there's one thing that is common across all game studios is that game development teams love to customize their own tooling. You're using Unreal Engine, everybody's got their own custom versions of Unreal or writing their own engines. And so from that starting point, it's actually quite challenging to develop consistent AI development, AI tools across the industry. So I think some of the wins here is looking for these building blocks of AI tools that can uplift everybody. And one thing that we have found across our teams is just leveraging agentic AI for coding. So, we use tools like Klein or Rue or GitHub Copilot, and then you can select your model. And I mean, it's really amazing how it really accelerates code development. And then, of course, using tools like ChatGPT or Copilot to kind of bounce off ideas and do planning. So we found that across our teams, that's really increased productivity overall. And then, as you were saying, on the player-facing side, recently we launched the Gaming Copilot. It is in beta, so it's available in iOS, Android, and 2 weeks ago we just launched it on PC Game Bar, which is on a PC as you're playing a game. You can bring up a gaming Copilot and you can talk about the game. You can ask questions. How do I get unstuck? How do I get past this particular level? How do I build these particular constructions or do crafting? And we're seeing some pretty strong engagement with our limited audience. So we feel that having agentic AI that is supporting players, not distracting them from the play experience, but everybody gets those moments where they get stuck. And what I go to Google and I'm like, let's look up a YouTube video and let's scrub forward. But it's just sometimes it is helpful to be like, oh, I'm in this moment in the game. Can you help me? And just get that help right away. And I think it's those little moments where AI can really bring value.
Okay, so I have another moment comments, a little bit follow-up question. So how is, in your opinion, agentic AI or is reshaping the player experience, like personalization, interactivity, immersion? So would you mind to comment that?
Well, as I said, I talked to quite a number of studios, and I have been very impressed that I talked to some smaller studios out in the industry that are really pushing hard on thinking about new game experiences, new genres, new ways for a player to interact, maybe having a conversation with NPCs across the game to unlock puzzles, to get through a narrative. And so I've seen some very innovative mechanics and experiences, and I'm hopeful, in this next few months, in the next year, we're going to start seeing more of these AI games releasing that we can all experience.
Lovely. So, Thomas, how are things going from your side? You've been exposed to what's going on across the world and also Asia too. So what's...
Yeah, let me actually give an example of what we are doing in the player experiences experimentations from AI perspective. How many of you guys play Battle Royale or have played Battle Royale before? Okay, great. How many of you guys have killed dozens of bots in every single time? Okay. Yeah. So bots are known to be stupid, right? I mean, meant to be killed by you guys, right? So we are also looking at it, how the bots can actually play the game much more intelligently. That's one use cases of AI. And second, how can a bot trained by you could be your teammates of a squad? So that the teammates of a squad knows what to say, typical behavior, how you shoot an angle, so that it can actually help you to win, the Victory Royale or chicken dinner from the PUBG perspective. So those are type of experimentations and then study that we're doing so that make sure that player experiences of AI gets enhanced and actually give you another scenario that can happen within the Battle Royale. So that's probably a good example. I think you can kind of relate to what we are actually doing it from the AI perspective.
Thank you so much. So, Luis, any comments from you?
Yeah, I think much like the other panelists, I completely agree. Like those type of experiences we're also exploring. There's other ones that are pretty interesting. Is that this idea of providing more support for the player through a more immersive experience. Like again, if you get stuck, or if you don't know what to do next. Very common in live service titles. If you come into a live service title, you haven't played for a year, you have so many options, you don't know what to do next. So these type of systems are great to start guiding. They can guide you and they can help you understand, okay, your ideal path based on where you were before and the state of the game is the following. So we're playing with a lot of those ideas to see what is the best possible experience, but it all depends on the game team. So it has to be driven creatively. It has to be aligned with the vision of the game team, the creative direction that they're going after. So we spend also a lot of time talking to the studios, and same thing, like the small studios are the ones that are pushing for a lot of innovation because they don't have the resources, right? So everything feels like an acceleration. So I think we're going to see in the smaller titles probably more innovations in this space.
Thank you so much. I think we'll go to the next section. We talk internally about how the future will look like in some capacity and how technology will impact us. So what role do you think, and start Moin with you, so what role do you think Agentic AI will play in the next generation of gaming technologies? So
yeah, I think that's a great question. I want to start with, I read recently a paper, don't remember top of my head who wrote it, but they were saying fundamentally, how does the US user experience will change? Like what we see today has been there for the last 10, 20 years in gaming. But with agentic AI, will we still continue to do the same way? For example, ChatGPT, we just type natural language in to get the answers, which before we used to type a query in Google, much more structured query. Now we do an NLP. But in terms of in-game experience, would we still do the same way? Will there be new devices? OpenAI is working on some device, AI-enabled device. Will there be different devices that will fundamentally change user experience of a gamer? I think that's something to think about, and obviously it's going to evolve and going to happen. Will we continue to do the same way? Second is really, I think the fundamental thing that will change is from a scripted NPC to emergent NPC, right? Today it's scripted, but tomorrow it will be much more emergent based on the dynamics of the game, user, profile and user experience. That will change immensely. And I think lastly, I would say is hyper-personalization. Right? We have done personalization, but most of it tend to be static. Right? We have done the math behind the scene. We know it is Thomas. He lives in Korea. You know, he leads a gaming company. And then we put stuff in front of him. But tomorrow, with more dynamic data or real-time data, really, how would we personalize it a lot more to Thomas's needs? So I think hyper-personalization is going to be a big thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a very valid comment. Luis, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, when I think about the future, I think there's a couple of things. The first one is AI is here to stay. And I think if we play our cards right, it's here to make gaming better and the industry better. When I think about the future also, I think about two different ways that we're going to be evolving. The first one is optimization. The second one is reinvention. So I think optimization is think about the games that you love today, how they can be better with AI, right? And that immersiveness that you're describing, like more like living worlds that will draw you in and they keep changing and that you can have a very different experience every time, but you're still in that environment. You're still in that like kind of beloved setup that the creative director have put in front of you and that the team has put in front of you. I think there's another version here, which is reinvention. It's like new forms of entertainment that are going to be under the gaming umbrella. And I don't think we fully understand them yet. Like you have neural rendering, you have a few things in this space that are super intriguing, but nobody has really cracked it yet. I think over the next year or two, we're going to start seeing experiences that are just your experiences. It goes beyond hyper-personalization. Is the game that you're playing is just your game, right? And it's set up for you with the parameters that you want it, and nobody else will have that experience unless you want to share it with them. And that could take many forms. It could be 10 hours, it could be 10 minutes, it could be 10 seconds. So I'm very curious about that second part, how it's going to help create new avenues for us to create entertainment for everybody.
Thank you so much. And Thomas, anything from your side?
I guess I'm keep giving the example. So when I think about the future, I have to think about my son, who is 10 years old, right? Last year, we did a small project of creating a game using Unity, because I want him to actually experience a game development, right? This year, we scrapped that out, because he's now playing with ChatGPT, and he's creating the world that he couldn't do last summer. He was able to do a lot more using ChatGPT this year. That's going to be the future. So gaming technology, I'm not sure how many of you got developer who are really focused on developing your skills as a developer. But I think more in the future with the agentic AI coming much more advanced in the future, I think it's going to be more about the creativity. So it's not about the basic skills, it's about the details. How are you going to be able to actually get to the level of detail using agentic AI? Because the fast to speed to the 80% or 90% of the quality, it can be done by AI much faster than anyone else. But how are you going to be able to fill in the last 10% with your creativity? I think that's going to determine the future.
Yes, but also the future brings also additional considerations always. Yes, so everything what brings many cool things, you know, like cloud, like data. So we've been have certain consideration preconditions. So are there any ethical considerations or risks studios should be aware of when scaling their AI systems?
Yeah, great question. So in KRAFTON, we actually we bought pretty much all the enterprise licenses of all the AI tools so that they don't have to worry about cost and they can go and do it. Still, studios are a little hesitant. It's like, what if this is going to replace me, right? So we try to make sure that, no, it's not going to replace you. It's going to give you. But still, they are really concerned about basic level of artists and developers potentially losing their job. So AI, is that really trying to be replacing the basic developer, or is it going to be a tool to support them to be a better developer? I think corporate needs to make that decision. And within KRAFTON, we made a very clear decision that, hey, we are never going to do any kind of layoff based on the AI replacement of the developer. But we're going to let you use it, make sure that you become much more productive so that if it, let's say, used to take 3 or 4 years of development, now let's see how we can actually shorten it to 2 years and go to the market much quicker. And that's the impact that we are trying to do. But corporate needs to do a better job of making sure that that's the policy and that's the direction that corporate is going to use AI for. Because otherwise, all the developers are going to be scared. And second, we have to talk about IP. Because if you're using the LLM that has been trained on the model that's somebody else's creations, and you're using the output of the LLM into your own game, then are you infringing the IP that someone else has created? How are you going to guarantee that this is your own creations? And I think that part of the legality has not been really solved yet when somebody's really using LLM for the actual in-the-game development. So, I mean, those kind of area, you know, it's like, oh, I'm just using ChatGPT, so therefore, I mean, whatever the outcome is my output. Well, guess what? I mean, you don't know what kind of inputs ChatGPT used to be able to, you know, train the LLM. So how are you going to guarantee that creation is yours? I think those are some of the concerns that we still have as a gaming industry. How are we going to be able to really make sure that protection is there for creations, or anybody who has a creative mind in the game development, make sure that they are protected from all costs.
Thank you so much. And Haiyan, anything from your side, since you do the massive research across AI for the Xbox? So what do you think about that?
Well, I think there's various facets to talk about here. I think first and foremost, I agree with Thomas that there's definitely, I think there are AI tools right now that are more proven than other tools. So obviously there's AI tools that are more generative and some of their outputs cannot be guaranteed. But then there are also AI tools that many teams are using, such as I talked about before, agentic coding, where it is proven with continued use. At the same time, I encourage everybody to think about the AI as tools rather than as completely replacing a particular function, because when you work with the tools, you totally understand, hey, this agentic coding platform, it is not actually, you know, completely writing code that I would agree with. It's actually making suggestions for code. You need to really work with it. You need to really understand, hey, what are the biases of this particular tool? And that really requires a partnership with the tool itself. And then on the other side, what we're finding very interesting is for our product and for other products that's launching, let's say, an LLM conversational experience, it brings up new questions of what it means to test and evaluate the output of your application, the output of your experience. These are completely new capabilities that we're having to build. AI evaluation teams. It's different from unit testing that we are familiar with in the past, where we have evaluations that look at hallucination, look at quality, look at relevance of the LLM outputs, and we measure these on a daily basis. So it's really important if you're thinking about, you know, deploying an experience where someone's having a conversation with an NPC that's driven by an AI system, to think about these new capabilities in evaluation that I think we're just starting to learn how to do this. Perhaps somebody should write a book on it
Sure.
when they figure it out. But we're just kind of figuring out what are the tools, what are the metrics we use. So I would say that is a consideration for, you know, thinking about scaling out these products.
Awesome. And hopefully this book won't be written by AI, so that's the thing. But the humans first. So
maybe Luis and I could write it together.
that's
ChatGPT's help.
yeah, but
No comment.
you can always check it's written by AI or humans. That's also a good thing. So Luis, what do you think from your side? What are the considerations that studios should be aware when scaling AI?
So I'll say the number one challenge that I have seen is the framing. And this framing is very particular for the game development industry. For whatever reason, we landed in a framing that is like, if you use AI, it's a threat to our jobs, don't do it. If you don't use AI, you're ethically sound and you're doing the right thing. And as long as you have that framing, like, you cannot move forward, right? It's very difficult to find the right compromise. And if you think about the situation or like the relationship from first principles, is way more nuanced than that. It's not like, use AI, you're bad, don't use AI, you're good, right? Like, it's about how you frame it and how you're trying to use it internally. And as you heard from many other folks, like, the idea of using AI is about using a human-centric approach to AI. Is putting the talent at the center of the equation. Is how you get the talent to be more efficient, more effective, how you can make more games. So this is not about replacing people. This is about empowering humans, empowering talent. And as long as you understand that and you have the right code of ethics, you have the right framing for it, I think it's much easier to adopt it. So if I'm in a studio that is considering using AI or not, which was my case at Bungie, the first thing that we said is like, let's build the principles. How do we want to embrace this technology? What is important to us? And the first principle is like, we're not using it as job replacement, which is the same thing that you have heard from the other panelists. Number two, we're using it to accelerate the talent. And three, we're going to use it in a way that's ethical in terms of the type of data that we use, in terms of the type of systems that we use. Now, being quite honest, there's a gray area. The whole world of AI is moving so fast. And like somebody else mentioned, what's true today is not true next week. So you have to take some risks and be okay being wrong, and then course correcting if you're wrong. If you realize, wait, that system that we're using, there's some issues with it, move on. Transition to something else, but don't stop working on AI because of that. So that has been kind of the way we've been approaching it for some of the studios. Is being fairly successful. Now, depending on the studio DNA, some of them are further behind on that curve, some of them are further ahead. But the framing, the internal framing, and the ethical framework are super key to be able to move forward.
Thank you so much. So I think we're moving to the next question. So literally, like, what needs to happen for AI to be scalable and accessible across the industry?
I'll talk about this from the AI experiences point of view. So if you're thinking about baking AI into a playable experience, there's obviously, it's very exciting. We're seeing titles emerging that bringing in new experiences. At the same time, I think we also know there are some challenges here with the models changing, upgrading, retraining, and new models coming out from different companies. So if you're in the business of deploying a game, how can you ensure that one brick in your tech stack is stable? And if that particular model gets outdated or you need to upgrade the model, do you need to rethink the end-to-end of your entire experience? So there's still challenges. I mean, I think this is part of why we haven't seen more AI games, is that there's still challenges with picking the models, with latency, with the cost of the tokens. And also, there's been discussion of running models on devices, and that works in combination with the cloud, which can offset some of the costs. But then do you have specific target devices that you're aiming for? So this kind of like diversification of hardware specs across the industry. This is not just AI, but when you're building a game, what's the minimum spec? And as we see hardware get upgraded, get more capable, we're seeing much higher power GPU units, some devices with NPU units. How can developers really make sure that their games are installable on the larger set of devices? So I think some of that stability, we're in this kind of like shifting tectonic plates phase, and I think that stability will come, but I'm really heartened that there are studios that are just like getting in there and really pushing on the experiences. I think that's really going to help us figure out what these standards are and figure out how we all operate in this new kind of technology domain.
Thank you so much. So, Thomas, what do you think from your side?
Well, from my perspective, I think AI is being accessible and scalable a little too fast at this moment. So I don't think, I'm not sure whether there's anything else that needs to be done to be making more accessible and more scalable. But however, as Luis mentioned about the experience tier, the experience tier adoption of LLM and then AI has been still very slow because the game developer hasn't really used it. They are using it as a part of the development tool, but they have not necessarily incorporated it into game experiences yet. So therefore, that portions of the AI adoption is not yet really happening. I think we probably need to push that a little bit more. And that, I think, has a lot to do with still cost. Because once again, using it part of the development, you will pay a license fee and then that's it. If you're going to do it as an online services for many of the games as part of the simulation model, then GPU cost for all the time that is running, oh my goodness, we ran some of the calculations and it's not bearable. We have to change our business model on our game to be able to actually make that sustainable. So the cost is going to be a big bearing for us to be able to really see the scalable adoption on the gaming experience.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thomas, Moin, what do you see from your side?
Yeah, I think Thomas stole my thunder. I was just going to say cost, obviously. I think the cost is ridiculous at this point. And unless the costs come down for GPUs or LLMs, everything, it's right now, it's not possible unless games become $1,000 a pop, right, which won't happen. So cost is prohibitive at this point. Second thing I would say is really, still the LLMs are general. Maybe we need a game-trained LLM, something that is totally trained on gaming industry. And that might give some justification to using it dynamically, right? Because now you're paying a lot for a very general LLM. But I feel that that's where industry will go, is per vertical, we might have LLMs more and more. That way, that's tuned to that industry particularly. So yes, cost, and I would say really second one I would say is trust and security, as we just talked about it. I spoke to a lot of game developers recently. All of them are using it, but nobody wants to admit it publicly. They said this privately. The reason is they're afraid of the artwork and the IP behind it. They don't want to publicly say this game uses AI. But they are using it, but they just don't want to talk about it. So that's very interesting. And I think LLM companies or maybe some legal regulation has to come in that protects companies about it.
Thank you so much. I think we have some last section. It's called actionable insight for the industry. So we will give each speaker a chance to give one takeaway for studios or developers, the way to integrate Agentic AI or AI into their games. So what advice would you give studios starting their journey with Agentic AI? I think, Thomas, let's start with you.
Hey, well advice. How many of you guys are from the game development studio? Can I see your hands? Okay, how many of you guys have actually started using AI in your part of the development experiences? Great, I see many hands, all right. I think what advice I can give, if you actually see use of AI in the game development senses more from the fear factor, then adoption is going to be slow, and not all the team members is going to embrace it, and it's going to create the chaos, or not necessarily so much standardizations in actual adoption into the entire team, right? Because not individually adopting it, but the entire team needs to embrace that methodology and then make sure that it becomes part of your team culture, right? So therefore, as long as you have a fear factor, that is because maybe caused by the industry or maybe lack of, directions from the corporate perspective. Either way, I think corporate needs to give the assurances to the studio saying that, hey, this will not replace any of the developers. However, let's embrace it. Let's find it as an opportunity to see how you're doing a AAA development using AI with less than 50 people. And that's the goal. And you give a clear challenges on what studio needs to do, then I think that goal is going to motivate the teams to be able to embrace the AI into much more of the developments and create the new experiences.
Thank you so much, Thomas. Moin, what's your insight?
Yeah, I think, look, as much as we talked about cost, trust, and all those factors, there is no going back. AI has to be used. Everything will be solved over a period of time. But if you're a gaming studio not using AI, I think you'll be left behind. And honestly, that might even impact your survival. So there's no going back. AI, as I think Luis said, it's here to stay. We all know that, but we're skeptical still. But in my opinion, this evolution, maybe a revolution, has taken place. And its baseline has been established. It's just going to get better from here, cheaper. So every game studio has to use it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Luis, would you want to comment your own words?
Oof, I agree. I agree with everybody here. I have a little bit of a different advice, which is if you haven't used AI yet and you're trying to understand how to bring AI to your studio, to your team, the biggest piece of advice I have is use it in a way that is non-controversial. Like get that win that you can show the rest of the studio, you can show your colleagues how effective it can be. And that's the approach that we use at Bungie early on. Like when AI popped up, like Bungie is a very craft protective studio, very worried about the talent, very worried about the artists. So all the antibodies kicked in, and we rejected the idea. But we said, like, hey, and I was the CTO there at the time, is like, we cannot just look the other way. We have to find a way to embrace AI. We set up an AI team, and their mandate was to work on stuff that was not related to content. It was mostly related to operations. And we started having a bunch of wins in that space without major investments, showed it to the rest of the studio, and then kicked off like a lot of goodwill for the studio. We look at it, it was like, oh, that sounds great. Like, maybe I can do that for my part of the job, and realized that it was not, even though he saved hundreds of hours a week, it did not turn into reducing the team sizes for the teams that were embracing AI. So start with something that's not related to a controversial area where you can have some quick wins, and then show the rest of the company those wins.
Thank you so much. Haiyan, what's your comment?
Yeah, I think I'll just speak from personal experience, which is I've said this in this panel that agentic coding, I just feel like is a total win. You know, I've used it in my coding, and it just really speeds you up and really helps, especially if you're like rewriting functions and it's just like, oh, there's some mundane stuff you gotta get out of the way. And there's multiple tools out there, so I just urge you to try different tools and switch out the different models, because I think for every team, there will be a different agentic coding recipe, and you need to figure out what works for your small team or your large team. So it's not just sort of like, hey, have at it. It's more like, hey, here are the platforms, and some of the ones that we use are like Klein or Roo or GitHub Copilot. And then here is the set of models, and there's new models coming out. Let's try GPT-5. Let's try Claude, Sonnet. Let's try Gemini 2.5 Pro. And which ones are just the right tune for your code base? And even using these platforms, even if just to write documentation. Just these sort of more mundane tasks that you can offload that enables you to do some of that more creative coding, I think is a big win for almost every team across the industry.
That's fantastic. So I think the maybe a request to the audience and things you've been doing for a while. So try your own recipe. So there is now prescription coming from all of the top leaders. So play with your code. Create your own agents. If you're a business analyst, you create your agents to create better documentations. If you are a developer, you have a lot of productivity tool set how to make your code better, faster, more reliable. If you come from the QA side, there are many cool things happening with the quality assurance world right now. If you're a functional tester, how can I use AI to make my tests better and literally ship the game faster? If you're art creation, there are so many great things now you can do from the art side. So I think the world is your oyster, and we have some really great news. We find these people, they're super busy, they're managing hundreds, in some cases thousands of people. We will decide maybe spend next 10 minutes. We can go to EPAM booth, which is literally behind us, and maybe it's a good chance to talk to Luis, to Haiyan, to Thomas, and Moin for the next few minutes, if you have an opportunity. Other than that, thank you so much for coming. It was a great panel. Hope you like it and enjoy it, and wish you a great Devcom. Thank you so much.